Thank you, Ute. Well, thank you very much. I'm so glad and happy, and it's a great honor to me to be able to present this today, which is an initiative that started already to be envisioned a few years ago, 2021, but 1.5 years ago, on synergies with the creation of Ocean Info Hub and so on, we really pushed that forward. And it's with all the top partners here that have been really promoting this, together with UNESCO IOD, with the Ocean Best Practices System, but also with FAO and ICES. Of course, it's far more than this. Behind that, there are many programs, many organizations. Most of them are here already that have been supporting directly or indirectly this roadmap. So, say that, yesterday I was just planning a bit or playing a bit with ChatGPT. I must admit that I'm quite addicted since the last 2 months with this tool. And I was just querying about, give me best practices related with salinity measurement on the Baltic Sea. And then it came back to me with this. Of course, I'm extremely using OBPS all the time, so the model is quite biased towards my preferences. With Charles, for example, he's not a user because we tried that in his computer yesterday and it gave nothing back. But nonetheless, still, this query is something simple. It's not what we really want. I mean, this is a bit more like Google, a bit more vitaminated, right? It's giving back some links that are providing the access to the methods or practices into the, in this case, in OBPS, with a bit of verbosity. But the real queries that we want to do here is hey, it's like in Star Trek, right? That they were in that voyage in the space, and it was all the time like, computer, I have a problem, just solve it for me. Give me answers, give me what to do. So this is kind of what we would like to do. Hey, ChatGPT or whoever, I want to measure this somewhere and I have these resources, can you give me recommendations? Can you? So at the end of the day, you don't even want to read the document, so to speak, as a lazy user, right? We are now accessing the documents because it's what we have, but in a few years' time, what we envision is that the machine can give us results, we can query back, and it's refining the content of the methods and giving us the responses that we need. Today we were talking about different things, about the digital twins and how this is, for example, in terms of how we can use in these workflows connecting tools and services that could be eventually connected to machine actionable methodologies. Or we've been talking about training of MLNet modules, for example, that at the moment, yes, we are accessing the document from MLNet, but for training purposes, you could interact perfectly with these interfaces, and regarding the problems that you are having, that the machine is just clarifying for you the doubts that you have, because maybe in the document itself, it's not yet clarified enough. Or, yeah, for example, most importantly, about the beacon thing with Peter and subsetting about communities, data, etc. Instead of subsetting by communities, you could say, give me all the temperature data that has been collecting according to this methodology, or whatever, because everything is kind of connected. But before reaching that point, there is some groundwork to do, right? But at the end of the day, as a user, you just want a single point of discovery to really relevant content or know-how, because it's what methodology is about, is the know-how, tell me how to do things. That, of course, is supported by, it's reliable, there is quality behind. So these are three main elements. There might be more, but to me at least they are the most important to keep in mind. So this is kind of what OPFN it is. Before having all this layer of complexity in it, we still work with documents, we still work with repositories, and before feeding all these models, what we need is really a lot of content. We have the firepower, but we need ammunition. We need more documents, more data connected and interoperable when it comes to sharing methods and documents. So the Ocean Practices Federated Network, this logo, by the way, is generated as well by ChatGPT. That's what it thinks that I would feel about having a logo for that. But this is planning to be a global network connecting isolated or fragmented repositories that may enable, and that's important, centralized discovery but distributed access to relevant and reliable documents, reliable. We will come back to this later. So Once we established this, definitely this will provide enhanced discovery opportunities whilst preserving autonomy and control by the provider. So we are not trying with this to deviate the traffic to the users as we were doing up to now, for example, with OBPS, where we were using the last years to collect a lot of documents into one central repository. But then, for example, at the end of the day, the traffic of the users were going to one repository itself, and the creators of the documents were not kind of being credited on the long term, right? So with this, we want to really avoid this part. This will improve deeply interoperability, hopefully also from the user perspective, that can really ensure that. At the same time, that is using the interoperability layer behind from ODIS architecture. And at the end of the day, this is the part of the technology, but technology merely would reach half part of the way. We really need the community engagement. We need the soul of that, and this is what this would be about. There is a need also for OPFN to be a platform for community engagement, for allowing cross-validation, for allowing the practices to converge into best practices, to harmonize ways that we are doing things when necessary, of course. So on the right side, or that side, all used traditional way of accessing documents, right? We have the different repositories, the users accessing the information individually. Some of the information are replicated in some repositories. Some are present in one repository but not in the other, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the always recursive things. Users want a central point of access. So what we propose is all this orange stuff where we have one user interface with this central discovery and distributed access back to the repositories. And for that, we are planning to use Ocean Info Hub, so everybody adopts, everybody connecting to the network adopts the pattern for methodologies. It's submitted in Ocean Info Hub, and it's the network who filters the content in Ocean Info Hub related with the practices. And it's in the user interface on the this OPFN EDS enhanced discovery search that we would then implement advanced searchability to provide relevant outcomes from the search. So first initial nodes in these initiatives is FAO through OpenAFSA, sorry for the ISIS library, and the Ocean Best Practices repository. So they are three main sustained and mature infrastructures that are now able to connect. Already FAO and Ocean Best Practices system has implemented the pattern for Ocean Info Hub, and hopefully ISIS will be soon as well on the train. But all the benefits come with challenges, of course, and in terms of sustaining the network that we are about to create, in terms of ensuring that the content is robustly shared, we need some kind of guidance agreement. So we expect that the different nodes joining the network can participate, or I encourage or should be obliged to participate in structuring minimum governance on how we are going to behave in this new community. Interoperability layer is important because everybody's managing their own vocabularies, and what we really want is to provide relevant search results. So there will be a lot of work on here on how to mapping cross-domain vocabularies, on what find solutions to really improve this searchability. And then quality assurance of the content. We need to ensure that the content that is being shared, the metadata that is being shared, is complying in minimum requirements for completeness, for validity, for consistency, right? So apart from that, there are many things that are happening in Europe, for example, right now, and there's a need for integration as well. And just for citing two right now, this is the European Union Aquaculture Assistance Mechanism. You have the screenshot there. They are compiling basically methods and best practices related only with the aquaculture sector. The other one is the European Commission Ocean Best Practices and Standards System that is right now on the way of being produced, but at the end of the day will contain those methodologies, best practices and standards that the European Commission would be ready to endorse to be widely used in Europe. So the question here is how this network will interact with these end users, whether this could be also nodes into the network. So there's a lot of groundwork to do here in the future. Now, allow me to say that this really turns my engines on. So this is, after 8 years, a really good result on, at least to me, sorry, on how OBPS has been leveraging with existing infrastructures in Europe. And IMODNet is a very good case of that. 9 months ago, maybe they can correct me on that, but already IMODNet chemistry and bathymetry started the journey of implementing the link between data and methods. And right now, IMODNet physics has started to work this way as well. And this is an example in particular from IMODNet physics, where the ERDAP repository is linked to the Ocean Best Practices repository. And you can see in the red lines how the data is linked back to the method in the repository of OBPS, whilst there is also the URLs to the data back to ERDAP. This is really good because this will really allow the machine-to-machine connection when you start asking, filter me this data that has been collected using this methodology, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, it's a really important step forward. 1 minute, okay, then. We've been discussing a lot on quality, and we've been strongly criticized for that, sometimes constructively, sometimes less, but with the reason, because the word best practice has been overused during the last years and sometimes even misused. So there's been a lot of controversy on, okay, what is really qualified to be a best practice? How we can guarantee that third element that we were discussing on guaranteeing the quality of what we are saying this is a best practice. So the authors that you see here has proposed, this is now on the process of peer review, and has proposed on this scale of 5 levels based on capability maturity models, where the important aspect is to try to objectivize in a quantitative way what can be qualified a good practice, better practice, or best practice. There are different communities that have been already trying this. ICES is right now testing that as well, and hopefully there will be some feedback. So we expect that this could be also a good example to move forward with the federated network. We don't know, but it's a proposal for guaranteeing about the quality. Then automating metadata curation and improving searchability. We've been doing a proof of concept on that, but I'm not jumping into this now because it's too late. But basically, just to summarize, the OPFN is emerging as a shared effort guided now by UNESCO, IOC, FAO, and ICES, and GOOS, sorry. Although there is a huge community that has been already supporting this, and that's important to mention. We will provide central discovery and distributed access to methods, best practices, and standards, relying on all this architecture for interoperability layer, and we have plenty of future work to do towards that vision that we were commenting in the beginning of, hey, Google, do that for me, give me the answer, I'm lazy. So, yeah, I think that probably can stop here just in case there's any question or something. Thank you.
Thank you, very nice, inspiring presentation. I noticed that you said showing the connection between the data and the methodology applying to it. And of course, I know the ocean best practices from Iliad also. But what it made me think of is the Geo Knowledge Hub, which is exactly about that, to show the data and the pathway until a result. Have you considered working with them, or are you familiar with the Geo Knowledge Hub?
Say again, please, the Geo
Knowledge Hub. So the Group on Earth Observations Knowledge Hub.
In particular, myself, I'm not acquainted, but I'm sure that some people in our group may have been already thinking on that. I would quite bet on that, but it's not been my main activity in tailoring this, so I unfortunately cannot say, but I'll keep it in mind and query to my colleagues back.
Wasn't Pauline on the author list? Wasn't Pauline? Yeah. And they are in Geo, aren't they?
Then I can gladly say, yes, we are aware on that.
Okay, yes, thanks for an interesting talk. I was just wondering, considering, I mean, you talk about best practice, and that seems like a point, end point for a method. But we all know that methods develop over time. How will this work with, especially when you loop around back to the geodata coming out of different practices, different methodologies?
Why you had to ask this? I'm glad that you asked that. It is really a controversial thing because, you know, the initial explanation or definition of best practice is, okay, it's a methodology that has shown better results than other methodologies with the same objectives, and to be elevated to a best practice, this method needs to be adopted by multiple organizations. But this definition, okay, there is more on that, because this showing better results than others is really, really conditioned to context and situations. So you cannot ask to measure with a certain degree of accuracy a particular variable here in Norway or in Ghana. Definitely. So this context needs to be clear, so that the definition best practice at some point becomes, it needs to be flexible when it comes to application. It's not that, okay, we are converging all the time to one single best practice for this particular domain, because really it can depend. So that, in my opinion at least, and it's only my opinion, there can be other ones, definitely we need to keep this flexible, because one single methodology can be adapted or used in different contexts. But I'm not sure if I responded to your question.
It's also the temporal thing. Whatever best practice changes over time.
Yeah, that's also a good thing. That's why what we were trying before with OBPS, well, we've been trying that, and we want to move forward with this into the federated network, is this community engagement part. As I mentioned, I've talked a lot about the technology, because this is what it's about, mainly this meeting, but the community engagement there is important, and we in particular are not the ones to decide on this, because we are not the domain experts. We facilitate the context for magic to happen. So what is really important here is that different communities join together there, and they put the rules on precisely that, how we as domain experts decide that the evolution of this method becomes or not a best practice, or it was a best practice from the 80s till the 90s, and then now, did I respond better now? Yeah, okay, that's it's a tricky question.
Okay, thank you, Cristian. So now we move on.